The Democratic National Committee is preparing to propose a rule change that would require all DNC officers to remain neutral in Democratic primaries, effectively forcing Vice Chair David Hogg to choose between his leadership role or supporting primary challenges against incumbent Democrats. This move comes after Hogg pledged to spend $20 million through his group to leaders who deserve to be unseated, people he says are asleep at the wheel, Democrats in safe blue districts. This is sparking backlash from his party leadership. While some see this as part of a broader reform push, others view it as a direct response to Hogg's insurgent political activity. A vote is expected at the DNC's August meeting. Joining us now is Elijah Day, Republican strategist and political commentator. It's great to see you, Elijah. What do you think of this headline?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's a broader issue that Democrats are having in general, where they don't know which direction they need to go. And so what we're seeing is
that's clear.
Yeah, we're seeing a push for deciding, like, do we center ourselves or do we push ourselves to an extreme? And so that void, I mean, there's just a power struggle happening right now, a void that's trying to be filled while they try to figure out what to do next, because they're lost on all fronts. Their messaging, their leadership, everything is messed up.
Would you say that this is actually an issue for DNC's internal cohesion between the younger set of liberals and the older set? Is that where the divide is coming?
Yeah, I think naturally. I mean, we just see this in general throughout society, but they're facing it currently within their own systems. And you see separations between members of Congress on the left and Senate, where you've got younger sets of people that are pushing for a further left agenda, while the older want to keep things as they are. And so I think we're just going to keep seeing this struggle. I think naturally, you might see that the younger generation prevails ultimately, because they're looking for a counter movement right now. And so I think it is an interesting watch, but it's definitely emblematic of society as a whole and where the left is moving.
So I know that you worked day to day, you've worked for years day to day with grassroots conservative movements and campaigns. You were heavily involved in the midterms, you and your company, and you were involved in the presidential election for the GOP. Did you see any parallel kinds of risks happening on the conservative side? And is it still around? Is it still something that's kind of underneath the surface?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting because what we do for work, Patriot Grassroots, is we talk to people. So we go door to door and we have human interactions, human conversations, and we get to see how people feel about things. And I think we saw that more kind of those rifts in 2020 and before 2020. Thankfully, in 2024, I think people finally opened their eyes and they started embracing Trump as the leader that he is, as a strength. Because in reality, he's a strength for our party. He coalesced our party into something. We saw record numbers of minorities and kind of middle of the road voters come over to our side, and that's because we had a leader. We had someone that was able to do that. And so those rifts kind of died down and the game's changed. It used to be that we had to find voters, but now it's about turnout for us. We just need to get people out. And if we can get people out, we win. Because Trump and his team, Susie Wiles, James Blair, Chris LaCivita, I could name a million people. They really had a great message and they really ran a great campaign. And it was through that we were able to unify the party. And we're more unified than ever right now.
It appears that way. Was there anything that you observed through Patriot Grassroots as you were, sending people door to door, interacting with voters? Was there things that you noticed from those interactions generally that, right-leaning pollsters even got wrong?
Another good question. I think what we saw was that just a large movement of minority and independent voters that came over that was missed. And I think it was missed because it was masked by other movements that were happening. And so I think we undersold
Interesting.
what Maha meant towards the movement. I always use my wife as an example because she is conservative, but she doesn't really like, she's not out there with her views. She's not talking about it. There's a lot of women,
Right.
and she's a young mother. And when the Maha thing happened, all of a sudden she became more vocal than ever because that was something that she was concerned about for our children and the things that we have
Wow.
going on. And I think you saw these movements of, we lost middle class women, suburban women, um, younger mothers or middle aged mothers in the last cycle, and I think we saw some
Right.
of that come back through Maha, through parental rights issues, and I think another thing was this
Yeah.
masculine vibe that came with the campaign of interacting with UFC, of interacting with these podcasters and these YouTubers, and I think that brought over a lot of youth, especially men, and minority men who maybe in the past had not voted on the side of Trump, and so that was probably the biggest conversations that we had where people were changing their mind and moving in another direction. And you also have people that are just anti-war, and to have someone like Tulsi Gabbard going around and speaking about those kinds of things, I think it churned around a lot of voters, and it was undersold, and it was a part of the reason why we were able to win the popular vote.
Wow, fascinating. Great point. I think you're right. It did bring over a lot of people who otherwise were not on board with, straight up MAGA. But yeah, the unifying aspects of taking over big pharma, big health, like that was, I think you're right. That was a hugely underestimated generally. And we're seeing the positive effects of it now that it's taking effect and taking power. So great points. Elijah Day, a pleasure as always. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
Coming up, a nightcap with AJ Rice. Oh, this is going to be a good time. You won't want to miss it.